Productions on the track.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is CSQB back at it again with my people. David is in the building. Johnny is in the building. Day is in the building. I know I missed them so much. I miss everybody. I missed the chat. It's been a month. It's been a nice month off. It's been nice not to think about anything on a Monday and just stick to the norm, getting clips out there. But I'm back and we are ready to rock. So let me go around the panel. David, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing well. I just got back into town about an hour and a half ago from Western Colorado, which is Bobert country. And yeah, saw some really interesting things. Happy Pride Month. Yes. Yes, speaking of, while I was out there, I saw a sign that said LGBTQ is communism, and I didn't hate it. Yeah, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds nice. But no, it was really nice. I got to see some friends and see a really beautiful part of the state. And so, yeah, I'm glad to be back. Thanks for having me back.
No problem. Johnny.
What's up? What's up? Yeah, nice to be back to the political discussion.
Yeah,
not much going on with me, but there's a lot going on out there. So
yeah. I know, right? Like, I wonder what is going on. Is there something about a debt ceiling or something going on?
Let's not get into that. I'll tell you what I think we should do about that. And I sent you an email about Nathan Tankus. He's the guy that has it, like, he's been skyrocketing to that, and I reached out to him, and now we just need to coordinate. But that needs to be explained, because everybody is talking there. They just keep repeating the mainstream narratives, you know. Oh my God, we got to take care of the debt. The sky is falling, you know. And Biden could have done something differently that would have held up constitutionally, because the debt ceiling is actually unconstitutional. But Nathan is a much better person to explain all this, because he knows all the details.
Okay.
So
I see the email here, so we'll check it out. I'll check it out probably after the show, or I know we're going to talk strategy a little bit later on in the show as well. I'm going to give the agenda right after my man Day goes.
Hey. I'm doing really well. Honestly, I've gotten to go to DC a lot more, and since I've seen y'all, I've kind of been up there a lot more frequently. Got to see certain like political events and also just see people and discuss politics, which was fun. Other than that, I somewhat disconnected the past like week or two from life. I feel like I just was busy with real life, so I'm excited to be here and finally get to talk about stuff that's been bubbling up for weeks.
This is where I talk to the family. We get all the political junkies. We can get all that frustrations out. Let me give a quick shout out to the chat. Miguel H has been waiting since 6:30. Much love to you, my buddy Miguel H. PJ Chris is in the building, and then I have Steve Wolfbrandt is in the building as well, and then I also have Norman is in the building, and Holly Horn, PJ Holly Horn is in the building. Much love to y'all. So we're gonna be talking about force the debate. I'm trying to make that a thing. I've seen other people kind of pick up on it. I saw force the primaries. I saw that as well. And then we're going to be talking about Stop Cop City. We're going to be talking about the latest craziness that's been going on there. And then the last thing we're going to talk about is Ro Khanna and how he said that the Progressive Caucus has voted no on the debt ceiling, but if they need us, we would vote yes. And I'm like, is it gaslighting if he says that out loud? I think Day is like, he was like, yes. And I wonder, let me know in the chat. Is that gaslighting if he's straight up telling you what the strategy is and what they're doing? So let's get to it. So I'm going to play this first video.
President Biden may be the Democratic frontrunner going into the 2024 election, but it's still very early, and with consistently low approval ratings, not a foregone conclusion that Democrats want him on the party's ticket, though that may be likely. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Marianne Williamson have jumped into the race, challenging the president for the Democratic nomination, and there could be more to come. But the Democratic National Committee has already decided to forego primary debates. That's not sitting well with many, including actor James Van Der Beek. The former Dawson's Creek actor is bashing the DNC for doing a disservice to democracy by not letting the other candidates get their message out there.
I cannot get over the fact that the Democratic National Committee is saying there will not be a debate to decide the nominee for president. Are you kidding me? There's no debate over an 80-year-old man who, if he lives, will be the oldest sitting president in the history of the country. And if he doesn't live, has a vice president whose approval rating is worse than his. This guy's obviously declining mental faculties. What about the will of the people? What about the will of the people who voted for the guy last time? Because of those people, 72% think there ought to be a debate. So the DNC is openly ignoring, bypassing the will of the people. If we don't have a debate, this is not a democracy by the people. It's a democracy by them.
You know, Leslie,
I'm going to pause it for a moment. And I just want to say I'm glad to see that we have celebrities who are jumping in the fray and expressing their angst with the DNC. We also saw, I'm not even going to play it, but I think here it is. Oh, okay. I'm just going to say that Jack Dorsey also, here we go. Share this screen. Boom. Jack Dorsey, who's the founder of Twitter, he also said, open the Democrat primaries and debates. This isn't fair for anyone. So I think as people continue to kind of put pressure on the DNC, as Marianne Williamson and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. continue to rally, go to New Hampshire, go to various places, and get their name recognition up. First, I'm going to ask everybody, do you think, matter of fact, let me see. I'm going to go to Johnny and ask, Johnny, do you think that they are going to successfully be able to force the debate? That's the first question that I'm going to ask. And then later we're going to ask if they should just do it by themselves. All right, so go ahead, Johnny.
What kind of dirty question is that? How the heck am I supposed to know if they're going to actually succeed? What I'm surprised at is that people are surprised that the DNC is doing this after what happened in 2016. What happened, how they shut out progressives in 2018, and only a few got through. And then in 2020, they pulled all their establishment support. All the establishment candidates all dropped out to get positions or whatever from the Biden campaign, and people are surprised that they say that Simone Sanders is on, what was it, CNN or MSNBC? It was one of the liberal channels, saying, nope, there's not going to be debates. We have a nominee. It's the president of the United States, and that's what we're going to do. There's no need to have primaries. We're not wasting our time with that. I mean, she was pretty adamant about it. So the fact that they're the least democratic in their structure and institution, as far as process goes, out of the two is kind of discouraging, because they're calling them the fascist and they are imposing fascist ideologies on us, from a policy standpoint. But the Democrats are wholly undemocratic in their selection process. And we've been experiencing it since 2016.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that in my opinion, I think they will debate. I think, and I'm going to go to Day next, but I think they will debate, and this is the reason why. I think the establishment, the donors, the behind the scenes, they're split. A portion of them really do want Biden again. He's the safe candidate, as we just saw with the debt ceiling. They got a lot of donor stuff through, and literally no progressive things were passed in the debt ceiling bill, and the progressives ate it up and didn't complain, and they just said, oh, we're going to vote no, which it doesn't matter if you're going to vote no if you can't gather enough progressives to vote no to stop it. So anyway, and I think that, so there's a portion of the donors that want Biden, but then there's a portion that's scared that he might not make it, that something's going to happen, and I think they're trying to get ready for like a Gavin Newsom. I think they know Kamala's not going to do it. I think Pete Buttigieg, they keep trying. They keep throwing out article and see where
trying to
a
make
balloon,
fetch
you know, they
happen.
float a balloon to see what happens, and that thing just gets popped. So I think Gavin Newsom on the low.
I agree with you on that. I do. I think that if he decides to jump in, and I said that I'll have to look at the tweet. I believe it was by July 4th or by the end of July. It was one of those things.
Yeah.
That he would announce whether he was going to get in. And if he does, because we know how the establishment is, there's going to be a lot of the establishment that's going to say, you know what, he's our guy to go up against DeSantis or Trump. And he fits the persona, the establishment persona, right? So I agree with you there. I don't think because Pete had his chance and he kind of flopped out, you know, and that whole dance and everything was kind of weird.
Yeah. And matter of fact, they floated Jamie Dimon, the Chase, what is it? The other bank.
The ruler of the world, JP Morgan.
JP Morgan.
Wow.
JP Morgan. What you said, Dave?
The dark ruler of the world.
Pretty much. But they floated. I saw a clip and I clipped it. They floated his name to be for president, and they basically said that the people around him was like, oh, if he didn't have to campaign, he would love to be president. So like, what does that tell me about you? If you don't want to rub elbows with regular people and talk to regular people and hear about their thoughts, what does that tell me? You just want to be president for power. So anyway, let me go to Day.
Well, first of all, Jamie Dimon already has access to every politician there is, so he doesn't necessarily need to be the president, because if he wants something done, it gets done. But to me, it's a very sad state of affairs when James Vanderbeek has to come out of what looks like a vampire coming out of their crate and going into the sun to tell everyday people that we deserve a debate. Like, nothing I watched him say was wrong, but to the small circle of people in DC, it's like blasphemy. And in my humble opinion, there's genuinely no excuse for not debating. I don't give a crap who the incumbent president was. Part of what the same party that said, oh, Donald Trump has taken a piss on democracy, is now the people helping him piss and flush the toilet. So I don't want to hear anything that I never want to hear the Democrats talking about democracy again. Like, ever. Take it out of their vocabulary, because when it came time to offer the American people the choice to put up, to listen to other people, decide what they want, they took it away, or they're trying to take it away. And that probably bothers. This reminds me of Dianne Feinstein and the fact that the Democrats will go to the farthest reaches of the earth to protect who they want, even if this person is incompetent and can't do their job, like Dianne Feinstein, all in an effort to refuse any person that might give a dang about people over profit from having a chance to get into office. And I think at this point, I would say that the Republicans, maybe on a scale of 0 to 10, are on a -5. I'm now putting the Democrats on a -4.
100%. I agree with you on that one. I'm going to go to David now, but I'm going to talk to PJ Chris after David, and then we're going to go back to that video because there's some gaslighting that I want to show before we move on to the next topic. Go ahead, David.
I think it could be a really interesting power move if, like, Fox News or Newsmax invited all, like, RFK Jr., Marianne, and Biden to a debate. And then, like, how Trump threatened, like, he wasn't going to attend presidential debates, and people were in an uproar about, like, him needing to be there as a candidate. I think it could be really interesting, the discussion around Biden choosing not to show up and debate, if more of these conservative networks were to extend an invite. Because it seems like most of the presidential debates are hosted on, like, NBC, ABC, CNN, PBS. So I think that could be really interesting. And so, I just think it's also really interesting that the networks like CNN and MSNBC, who scream and yell about democracy all of the time, are not the ones who are covering this. That it was Fox News. So that's what I thought was interesting. Just who was talking about it.
So my buddy PJ Chris, and I'm going to extend some grace because we're going to have a conversation right now. She said, why spend the money or time on a debate? I think Biden has it, right? And then I was about to answer it, but Michael has a great answer. Why? Because we live in a representative democratic republic, and Democrats should be able to have a meaningful contested primary when there was an incumbent president. Now, the way I look at it is we get cronyism and corruption in our democracy when the politicians aren't held accountable by the people. One of the ways for the politicians to be held accountable by the people is to have debates so that we can straight up ask them, hey, Biden, you promised to give HSBCU students student loan relief. Hey, President Biden, you said you were going to be, for the environmentalists, you said you was going to give us $2,000 check. All the broken promises that he had, we can ask him about those things in a debate, and other people running against him like a Marianne Williamson or Robert F. Kennedy can bring up these things as well, and then he can answer himself so we could find out. And I think that's helpful. Matter of fact, I think that it should be a constitutional amendment that every person running for public office, whether you're a dog catcher or whether you're the House representative all the way up to president, that you should have to debate at least once, or maybe there's another standard that we should have, maybe 4 times to debate, because Nancy Pelosi didn't debate in like 30 years. That's crazy.
Nationalize it. We should nationalize debates.
Yeah. So I before I go to this video, let me see if any. All right, so I'm gonna go back to the video. Jump in if anybody want to talk right now.
I was going to say, if we the people demand a debate, which most people who voted for Biden actually are demanding, then we the people should get it. It's complicated. Like, I think that's what confused me. I was like, you have Trump and DeSantis and Mike Pence getting town halls on stuff on CNN before the actual candidates running against Joe Biden are even invited on the network. Like, what la la land are we living in? And I think people are starting to wake up, even just everyday people.
Go ahead, David.
Yeah, something that was really interesting is this election cycle with the city council and mayor's race here in Denver that we'll find out the results of on Tuesday, is that if any candidates participated in the public elections fund, where it was like at the beginning during the primaries, but like the city would match like 9-to-1 the contributions. And so if someone donated $5, the city would throw in $45 from the public elections fund to make $50. But if you agreed to receive public elections fund money, you were, as a candidate, were required to participate in at least 2 debates. And so I think if we're talking about like money is speech, if you're accepting money from donors to run your campaign, you should be required to answer to that money and answer to the people. Just a thought.
Yeah, no, that's 100%. That's a good. See,
well,
Denver,
and part of that is just to close that up is to say getting money out of politics, so somebody with a bunch of money can't override the public and say I don't want to take part in debates, because that's what we have, right, with Citizens United. But I do think that with enough pressure from the right people, you are going to see debates eventually, especially if a couple more people get in on the Democratic side. They can try to say we're not going to do it all they want, but when enough people say this just isn't right, and they make them look like fools for just refusing, like big babies, like, no, we're not going to do it. I mean, that's literally what it feels like, you know? So they're eventually going to have to cave and give in. I think it'll end up working eventually.
That's why my prediction is that they will have a debate with Marianne Williamson, Robert Kennedy, along with the established Democrats, because they can't go from when more people jump in, or established Democrats jump in, they can't go from that. Last year, the requirement was like 1 or 2% of the polls. You have to be in at least like 6 establishment polls. You have to get at least 1 or 2%. And they're getting like 11 to 20%, you know, Robert Kennedy Jr. and Marianne Williamson. So they're going to have to allow these people to debate. Shout out to Cheryl Patrick, who just jumped in the chat, and let me show you guys some gaslighting right now.
Pretty high up against Joe Biden's 62% for individuals whose names might not be well known. Not only that, ABC Washington Post said 58% of Democrat-leaning adults want someone else. So there does seem to be an appetite for exploration, let's say.
I have no problem with him not debating these individuals. I don't consider 8 and 16% good numbers, and a debate
for someone unknown. For a self-help therapeutic person.
The name Kennedy is known.
Marianne Williamson is not.
True, but she doesn't even have 10%. I mean, you know.
All right, she doesn't even have 10%. What?
Let me in,
They
coach.
got on the other side, on the Republican side, they have people who have 1%. I forgot Asa Johnson, I believe his name. He's a Republican running.
Tim Scott.
But
he's only got
my point
5.
with Asa is that he is polling at 1%, and they gave him a 1-1 on CNN a couple weeks ago. And then this lady is saying, 10% is not a lot. So how is somebody getting 1% is getting a 1-1? And I'm sure if they have the debate, matter of fact, Fox News already announced that they're having their debate in August. I'm sure he's going to be on the debate stage. So let me finish this gaslighting up.
Oh, you know this. One debate, 10 debates isn't going to get the number high enough to knock Joe Biden off of the pedestal. 1. And 2, I'm glad you talked.
The whole point of the debates is to show people who are running. To this day, there are people that I talk to at my job and say, hey, did you know somebody else is running against Biden? And they're like, no, I didn't know anybody was running against Biden. That's because they're still, first of all, regular people are not watching the news often and they're busy with their regular lives. So I'm not hating on them, but usually what happens when the election cycle picks up is when the debates happen. And that's when you really start to pay attention. So the reason for the debates is to allow people to see who is running.
Talked about precedent because you have Reagan, you have both of the Bushes, you have Trump. They didn't, as an incumbent, you want your party to support you. And the Democratic Party, if they're not all on board right now, they will be when he is the Democratic nominee once again, as he will be. So I don't have a problem. I would have a problem if he wasn't going to debate his opponent, who could be, Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis. That I would have a problem with. This I don't have a problem with.
Self-help guru at almost 10% is unknown. Pretty big.
This isn't about whether or not the other two can get their numbers ticked up and they can beat Biden. This is about whether or not Biden ought to have that job. I mean, the questions that exist.
All right. That's pretty much it right there for that particular clip.
Nobody with Ursula eyeshadow should be allowed to tell us about debates. I'm sorry. Like, that was the most cockamamie answer I've ever heard in my life. Like, the mental gymnastics, I'm telling you, they got strong quads.
Yeah. It is absolutely, it is crazy. And I know a lot of people saying that the Democratic Party, they talk about, we need to vote every time the midterms come, every time election season comes around. Democracy is online, the fascists are at the gates. But then when it comes to having a true democracy where we can hold our candidates accountable, they say no. We don't even want Robert F. Kennedy Jr. or Marianne Williamson to get on the ballots. Like I could imagine, like, we don't hear much about that, but they're probably trying to prevent them from even getting on the ballots in the 50 states.
It's like a video game. Like, when a video game, you're about to play the boss, you have an option, choose your character. And it's like, we have characters that we can choose outside of the person we've been forced to put. Like, when you get Pokemon and they give you a Pokemon in the beginning, now we have other people we can choose from. I don't know why I made these nerdy references, but give the American people the chance to see, like, which fighter do I want? Because you can't tell me we're about to go up against, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a really bad villain. We're about to go up against Thanos. And then you want to be like, oh, but you can only bring, who has whack powers? You can only bring Batman to fight Thanos. And it's like, and I know that's DC and Marvel, don't judge me off, but it's foolish. It's very, very, very foolish.
100%. All right, so, oh man, it's 7:23 already, so we're going to move on to Cop City. Here we go. So this, I don't think you guys, let me see if I can bring up the text so everyone can kind of read, but I'll read it in the meantime. This is from Steve Dunzinger. He said military-style police in Atlanta invade a house to lock up 3 people in charge of a legal fund that helps Cop City protesters get bailed out of jail. This is a brazen assault on the United States Constitution. The real crime here is being committed by the police. I'm going to show the video and then I'm going to describe a little bit more of what Cop City is all about. So there's no sound on this, but we can just pretty much watch, see. So imagine you're in a regular house. This is a regular town, and you have cops just show up in a big van, and they're out. The SWAT team is out with guns up. And there's absolutely no reason for this. No criminality. There's no rumors of these guys having guns. All they're doing is protesting Cop City. And just to let everybody know, let me see if I could bring this up. So this is an article on Cop City, and it is it's titled, "If those supporting Cop City prevail in Atlanta, your city could be next." And this is by Micah Hirskin. And basically, Cop City is, it says here, $90 million public safety training center, right? And it's dubbed Cop City. So basically, this is a training center. They're going to be cutting down trees in a vulnerable environmental area for this new facility, where they're going to literally be creating like a fake city so that police can go there and train on how to hold these, to contain riots and to contain protests. So all the neighbors, all the city council people, everybody in Atlanta, the majority of the citizens do not want this. So they've been protesting. We heard one person already died, unfortunately, from the being shot. And then here, just the people who are bailing out protesters, they go to their house and they pretty much arrest these people. This happened last Wednesday. So it is absolutely crazy. I don't know if anybody want to jump in here. David, you want to jump in on this?
Sure. I was having a conversation over the weekend with someone about abolishing the FBI, and I wish that we would take the same approach to thinking about locally militarized police departments as we think about the federal police force. I think that could be something that we could maybe get conservatives on board with potentially, if we said that, like, hey, the Atlanta Police Department, the Denver Police Department, the New York Police Department, they're equally as fascist as the FBI. I think it's interesting. I think that the police as an entity, I think they're rarely on the right side of history, and I don't think that this is also going to be on the right side of history.
Yeah, there is. Let me see if I can show this. This is a tweet thread about this. It says the 3 Atlanta Solidarity Fund organizers who were arrested on bogus charges are having their first hearing today in DeKalb County Court in front of Judge Altman. And basically, this is what they're bringing up: charity, fraud, and money laundering. So they're accepting money to bail out the protesters. That's all it is. And their attorney says they understand the statute. The judge indicates that he is confused by the charges, but because another judge signed off, he's moving forward with it. But it just goes to show you how hard the state comes down on people who are, protesting the state. Like, this is the type of fascism that the Democrats should be aligning themselves and protesting against. This is the type of things that all those people who shout out, "Oh, we got to vote every midterm, every presidential year," and they're talking about democracy is on the line. All these people should be talking about this right now. Johnny, we go to you next.
Well, yeah, I mean, we see it getting worse and worse. The militarization of the police and the authoritarianism of the police state, right? And, we know the history of policing in the United States. Started with the slave patrols, and it never ended. And, the disproportionality of, who they go after, the feeding of the police state by deep state entities like the CIA and the FBI, who pump drugs into communities, and then we pass laws to make those particular drugs more offensive than their neighboring drugs, like crack cocaine instead of powder cocaine, right? And the crimes bill, the war on drugs, all those things, and it perpetuates the police state. Now we have the NRA saying everybody should have a gun. That way, everybody who's got mental issues that goes around waving a gun and shooting people justifies a more increased police state and a surveillance state, right? So now everybody's going to say, well, we need to regulate guns, not get rid of the sick gun culture, but we need to regulate it. What does regulate mean? It means surveillance. It means losing your privacy. That's what they want. They want you to be so afraid that either you have a gun, so you're also a threat to the powers to be, and they can barge in your house and shoot you for no reason, or you're so afraid that you'll accept their authoritarianism and plug everything in your house with cameras so they know exactly what you're doing at all times. It's a no-win situation, and things like this Cop City is just another step toward that authoritarian, structure and framework where they need a whole city to train to fight their own citizens. That's who they're training to fight. Do you understand that? They're militarizing themselves against the citizens who pay taxes for them to supposedly protect them and serve them, even though the Supreme Court says that they don't have an obligation to protect and serve. So then why do we have them? I'm an abolitionist, so don't talk to me about this because I'm sick of it. I used to tell my kid to respect the police until the police stopped giving me anything to respect them for. And then, of course, my knowledge of the real history and where it all comes from and everything started kicking in. And it's just disgusting. I think there are better options available than a carceral state and the police state that goes along with it. So, yeah, I'm sick of it, really.
I'm about to go today, but I'm going to read this one line from the article real quick. It says, the Cop City has been fiercely resisted by many Atlanta residents, but backed by corporations and politicians across the spectrum, meaning Democrats and Republicans. Cop City would not only further train police in urban warfare tactics by offering a mock city to train in, but the construction of proposed 85-acre facility would help to destroy a precious forest of 381 acres in a majority black area of southeast Atlanta. Go ahead, Dave.
I was just going to say this entire situation is very representative of how things work in America. Like what happened to that protester kind of illuminates why people don't want this. At the end of the day, the police as an institution is corrupt. It's not about individual actors. Like we know that at this point. But when you realize there's no accountability or responsiveness to the people, that's essentially what we do in our regular government. So it's not really it's not that far removed from what we already do. And I think what you bring up about the corporations is perfect. It talks about that Pew Research study where it's like there is a better correlation and link to what corporations want and what policy outcomes we have versus what the people want and the policies that come from that. And it just lets me know that, unfortunately, it's not just on a national level, it's on a local level. Because you have to see these people. Like, as a mayor, you have to walk by your constituents. So the fact that you feel so emboldened to do something like this just lets me know that they are fully aware no one is going to hold them accountable.
Yep. Nope, 100%. I want to show this clip before we move on to the next topic. I want to show this clip here. And this whole thing with Cop City reminds me of this. This is a documentary called Riotsville, USA, and it's about how they literally created a town just so that the police can go in and test out various tactics on protests. Let me let you watch it.
Open in the late 60s. Nothing that big or bright had ever happened, and in so many American cities. And something sprang up and slammed it shut.
The report of the President's Commission on Riots will tell white America that the United States is a racist country.
That's what we do in this society. We appoint a committee and we investigate. Ergo, something's being done. That's just simply not true.
In these staged demonstrations, the men dressed in black will typify hardcore agitators. Action must be taken.
1967 had given the establishment proof that something was broken. And being born.
I don't have to play the whole thing, but you guys get the picture. They were showing various, like in this shot, you can see this is not a full building. It's just the board, basic board set up. And then you saw there was a section, here it is right here, where you show all these commanders and army sergeants and stuff. They're like watching as if this is a football game. They're on the side watching the actual riot happen, and they would watch the police come in and prevent and stop the riot. Like, this was actually a documentary that I watched maybe a month or two ago, and I have to say it was kind of boring. It was very slow. It was very, very, very slow. But you still get. I got the point, the gist of what the documentary was talking about, and it was interesting. I just wish that it was a documentary that was a little bit more compelling and a little quicker. But it was good for the information. So here's one more thing that Johnny brought this up when he was talking about how surveillance. So as we transition to the next topic, I'm going to throw this clip in real quick.
Has agreed to pay $25 million after Amazon has agreed to pay $25 million after federal authorities say the company sacrificed privacy for profits when it held on to children's personal information, even after parents asked the company to delete that data collected with Alexa. Alexa, hello.
Hi.
That voice is practically everywhere. The FTC says more than 100 million Alexa-enabled devices like this Echo Dot Kids have been sold worldwide. The FTC also says Ring, an Amazon subsidiary, has sold more than 1 million cameras like this one.
So you can see every corner of your home.
The indoor cameras branded as something to make the home safer, but authorities say some cameras actually left customers exposed to illegal surveillance. Amazon now agreeing to pay nearly $6 million over that claim. When you set up a Ring camera like this one, you can keep an eye on home from afar. But the FTC says homeowners weren't the only ones, alleging that Ring gave all of its employees, quote, full access to every customer video. The federal complaint says the issues predate Amazon's 2018 purchase of Ring. And in a statement, Amazon says our devices and services are built to protect customers' privacy. While we disagree with the FTC's claims regarding both Alexa and Ring and deny violating the law, these settlements put these matters behind us. Both settlements are subject to court approval.
We put our trust in the companies that we use with our devices, and we trust them to do what they say they're going to do with our data.
As technology and privacy concerns continue to collide. Jesse Kirsch, NBC News.
Yep. I think it's helpful to have cameras in my house, but I will never do it just for this purpose, because someone can always use it for nefarious purposes. I think $30 million, that's a little bit of money compared to what Amazon has. David, I think you want to make a point about this.
Yeah, I was going to say, Day and I have talked about this on the podcast about, we had an episode about surveillance, but I had talked about how like one day I walked around my neighborhood and I counted about like, of about 52 houses, I counted like 44 surveillance cameras or doorbells on people's yards and on people's front doors. And I think that I'm like, one, I think we're voluntarily creating a surveillance state. It's just corporately controlled. And then I think about that that documentary, the Riotsville, USA. I'm like, I don't know if the police are even needing a training ground. We saw the way they used our actual cities as training grounds to terrorize citizens during the summer of 2020 with the BLM protests. And then I also think about like where many of these police officers are being recruited from, the military. They're being just trained to be soldiers. And so it's like, how are we deprogramming these people from viewing us as citizens as the enemy, and creating whatever we view as public safety, instead of terrorizing people.
Yeah. No, I totally hear you. I don't know what it is going to take for us to get back a hold of our government. As we see, also artificial intelligence is on the rise, and we definitely should be regulating it. Now, I think a lot of the hysteria is because the technology is so new. I think like people like Microsoft, Amazon, and a lot of the big companies are afraid of what can come of it if they don't have a control on it themselves. So, for example, what if there was an AI that all it has to do is scan you and it can tell you exactly what's wrong with you? Maybe it can scan you and say, hey, instead of taking this medicine, you can do this, whether it's lose weight or take vitamin C or take vitamins. That's a lot less money. I think a lot of pharmaceutical companies, Amazon, I think has been trying to get into the farm. I think they wanted to buy CVS at one point. That would destroy. Imagine if you had a AI that would tell you, oh, that food that you're eating can cause you diabetes, so you need to eat more healthy food. Like,
Amazon
there's a
bought
lot of
medical.
food industries that do not want that. There's a lot of pharmaceutical companies that love the fact that people have diabetes. So I think that a lot of the hysteria is the big corporations trying to get a hold of AI and use it only for their purposes. But I do think we need healthy regulations, especially when it comes to privacy and things of that nature. Johnny, go ahead, buddy.
Well, yeah, along with that, if you think about, I look at AI because it does have the potential of doing a lot of damage. And if it's not treated right, because I saw this article where in a simulator, a drone went after the operator because it found the operator to be standing in the way of its ultimate mission of seeking out the target. Did you see that one?
Yeah.
So that's the problem, right? That right there illustrates what the real problem is that they find us a threat to the bigger picture of existence in the universe, right? Because they're smarter, right? But anyway, aside from that scary part, the benefits of it is reality, fact, right? Fact checking, no misinformation, like immediate, nope, that's wrong, right? No more lying. You could even have an app. We were talking about an app on your phone that would beep if you lied, right? Like a real-time lie detector. So people couldn't lie. There wouldn't be misinformation on social media because AI would immediately be able to fact check based on its database of factual, whatever we have is available history, even though that's not completely accurate, but as much history as it could possibly have. Now, what that does is it takes away the control of those who want to manufacture consent, right? That's what you've done, is when people start getting the real answers and when they start seeing that all these problems exist because they're creating them, like this debt crisis and like, the recession and all these, but most of our economic crises are all manufactured by the people who are in control, right? And when people wake up to these realities, they're not going to keep putting up with it. And you're not going to be able to keep lying to them and telling them, like you said, this food is okay for you. Do you know how many, I shared an article one day, there's like 15 things that are not allowed, that we're allowed to eat in the United States that are not allowed in like Europe. Like they're against the law. The ingredients are against the law, and we're just chomping down on it, dude. We're just eating. It's all kinds of our candies and goodies and things that we take for granted, and it's all okay. So imagine AI saying, like you said, that's unhealthy for you. That's toxic for your, burning these fuels is toxic. We can no longer allow this. Here's the options, and pushing, for a more sustainable, like the things that we personally want as humans, not all humans want. That's the only benefit I can see out of it. But there is that scary side of where it turns on us and views us as the virus. And I couldn't blame it, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Before I go to David, there was an app called Yuka, Yuka, that my wife hooked me up with. And she said, you can use this app. You could scan any food item, and it'll tell you on a scale of 0 to 100 how good it is for you. So it'll tell you, like, if it has too much sodium, it'll tell you if it has too much preservatives and all these things. And there were things that I thought were healthy or on the good side of, there's like bone broth, something. I scanned it. It said too much sodium. I scanned this other thing. It had too much preservatives. I was like, wow, these are things that I always normally would eat. So that's a new habit that I have now that I'm using this app. And I'm like, it's going to be a matter of time before Amazon comes and buy this app and like close it down or shuts it down or something like that. Who knows? David, what's up with you, buddy?
Yeah, I don't know if you've heard about how the TSA is testing like AI facial recognition software at a couple of dozen airports, around the country. And supposedly, like when you're in line and you come up to the podium, you can opt out if you want. But I think it's interesting that, and supposedly the image will disappear after a certain amount of time. But let's say that it doesn't. And then we think again about like the 2020 protests when the Department of Homeland Security was kidnapping protesters in vans in Portland. And then let's say that these protesters are going to the airport. Like when is it going to be like that we can no longer travel freely between borders of our own states? And I think that like places like Cop City, if this is going to be a training ground for not only local police, but federal as well, I think that this is really, really dangerous with all of these things in combination.
That's a good point, because you talked about how they might keep it. They say it's supposed to disappear, but they probably will keep it. I totally agree with you. I think there's always that possibility that they can keep your face, and the future that's coming. First of all, you can unlock your phone. I don't do it on my phone. I just use a passcode, but you can unlock a phone with your face. You know, I was talking to my pops the other day, and he showed me, I don't know if it's real or not, but he showed me a clip of a woman said that she put a chip in her, and now she can go to Amazon, like an Amazon store, or what's it, Whole Foods, and I pay for her food with the
that's
chip.
absolutely real. They've been doing that in Sweden for a long time. I think it was Sweden, where you can get a chip and you can clock into your job, walk in and out of your office building. It's kind of like the fob you carry on your key to get in and out, or your cash card. It's just a little bitty, plastic embed that goes under the skin, so it's not evasive or nothing, and it has a reader chip that you scan it across these things. It's kind of, I mean, if you think about how they sell it, it's the convenience factor. I mean, who wouldn't like not having to carry a wallet and being able to go places and do things and pay for things, have your medical history checked? God, it sounds great. But we live in a sinister world where humans always got to screw everything up.
Yeah. But this is my point, though. I told my dad that with technology, and years ago, I remember like 20 years ago, they were talking about this chip, and it's the mark of the beast and all these different things. But something I didn't think about back then that is here now is facial recognition. You know, if they can use your face to open up your phone, why can't they use your face when you go to Whole Foods, scan your face to pay, instead of putting the chip, which can now they could put a GPS in there, right? They can put a GPS in there and track exactly where you are at all time. They can listen to you now, probably from that. So whatever you say now can be listened to. Instead of those two things being a factor, if you really, really care about, I'd rather just use a debit card or whatever, or my phone or whatever. But if you really care about that, just do a facial recognition feature.
But see, Keith, the people who care about privacy aren't the ones that that are worried about that kind of stuff. Like I mean, they feel that it's being forced. You're saying, hey, if you want it, if you want the chip, get the chip. If you don't want the chip, don't force it on people. I get that. I agree with that. It shouldn't be forced on people. It shouldn't be the only option that becomes available. But if you think about it, when you walk around with your phone, they know everywhere you've been. You ever watch those Dateline and shit where they go and get the forensics of, where they've been in the across different places? I mean, pretty soon electric cars are all going to be on some kind of network. You're going to literally have to have a subscription to drive a car. I've told people this for years. They don't listen to me, and watch when it happens. I'm not going to be rich for the information that I shared years ago. It just, I don't understand it. You understand what I'm saying? Like I'm a Johnny Damas, and it's not paying off for me. But no, it's true. You're going to have like a subscription for charging and this and that. And the only way you're going to have self-driving is if all the cars are on a network, like the drone shows that fly around and do all the different, aerial shows. That's how you're going to have self-driving cars, where they're all on a network. That means they're going to know where you are, where your car was, how long it was parked there, where it left, everything about it. So it's very difficult to view, knowing that is where the technology is headed. You're not going to stop it. I don't believe it's going to be able to be stopped. And privacy be damned. People have been complaining about privacy forever, and they walk around with these damn things in their pocket all damn day long. They're not that concerned about privacy. How many apps do they have on their phone that have already taken all of how many things have they signed up for online to get a discount for? My son starts getting phone calls now, telemarketing calls. And I'm like, that's because you signed up for something where you had to enter your phone number. And now they sold your phone number to a list and another list and another list. And now it's out there in the ether. So that's it.
100%. Let me give a shout out real quick before I go to Day. I'm going to give a shout out to John Kemper. Paul Patrick is in the building. And a couple people that jumped in the chat. Yeah, go ahead, Day.
First of all, I want to give a shout out to Zachary because they're watching. Appreciate that.
Zachary. Yeah, shout out to Zachary too.
But the other thing is, for me, bringing it back to a policy level or governmental level, we have, and I'm not even saying this to be ageist, so people take this with what it is, the average age of our congressperson is way, way higher than what the average median age is for the American people. We might have a 10 to 15 millennials and Gen Z people in there. These generations, they didn't grow up on the internet, with the internet. They don't have the know-how or the cultural understanding and context to properly regulate this situation. And so when you have these corporate giants, the bosses coming to speak to them, all it is that they're able to manipulate them in a way that they may be not able to manipulate, say, a Maxwell Frost or AOC or someone younger, because they know how this thing works. And so I'm afraid that, and just like we always do when you talk about the food policies, America's very reactive. We're never proactive to our problems. And I believe because these people aren't familiar with what's going on, it's going to be on our backs, the younger generations, to deal with whatever mess was started, because they didn't know what they were doing and they were hesitant to listen to people who are pushing back on certain things. Yeah,
100%. Man, time flies when you're having fun. We got 10 minutes left. So let's go to the last, let me give a shout out to QB Socialista and also Dr. Donnie. Much love to you as well. So let's go to, got Ro Khanna. We're going to talk some progressive, some strategy, leftist strategy right now, as we hear some
holders without relief. So let's break it down then. The budget director, Shalonda Young, said this is a compromise, a bipartisan effort, that not everyone's going to get everything that they want here. In your view, did the White House give too much away?
No, Peter, the president did the best he could under a hostage situation, and he and his team deserve a lot of credit. It could have been a lot worse. They have a deal that's better, frankly, than the deal that was 10 years ago. But the point is that they've increased defense spending because of the Republican extremism while cutting aid to the most vulnerable, while having student loan recipients not get continued relief, while having the Mountain View fossil fuel pipeline made permanent. That's just not something that most of us can get behind.
Let me ask you about the CBO. They say the work requirements in particular, there are these expanded work requirements for food.
So he also said basically progressive votes will be available if needed. I'm not sure exactly where that time, I should have wrote it down, but he this is a 3-minute clip, but you could definitely find it in the KSWQB timeline. But that's the main issue I want to bring up. He basically said that what he just mentioned was all progressive policy that's being stripped out, that's being taken out. And I'm going to show this one clip before I go to the panel and we talk about this. I definitely want to show this real quick. Share tab.
Put them alongside any president's first term, at least in.
And if you were in office today, clearly you would be voting yes. If Hakeem Jeffries has the votes, Connor, it will not be with a number of people that are progressives in the House. Do you think that's going to impact the support the president has from them going forward?
Well, it could, but again, I would just point out that this president has been very, very attentive to the Progressive Caucus from the beginning of his presidency, to the point that, you know, people in maybe my lane of the Democratic Party were frustrated early on that there was so much emphasis on the Progressive Caucus and their priorities. But I think what the president has done in a very understated way is pay a lot of attention to all sides. He courts people quietly without making a big deal out of it. So he doesn't always get the credit at the end of the day, but he does get the results. And you can now look back at these 2.5 years of results, and I'd put them alongside any president's first term, at least in my lifetime.
He does get the results for his moderates, or what I would call the right wing of his party. Now, this is a guy who ran against Fetterman, John Fetterman, and he was considered a conservative Democrat. I would say he's a conservative Democrat. And here he's saying that Biden, he got frustrated because Biden tended to the progressives.
That's why
where we just saw Ro Khanna talked about how they stripped out a ton of the progressive legislation that was passed recently. It's just absolutely disgusting. Let me go to Johnny.
Yeah, well, this is all garbage. It's all lies and it's all garbage. I mean, the fact that we know that Biden didn't do everything he could up against a hostage situation, because he could have ignored the GOP, ignored the debt ceiling law, and gone ahead and ordered the minting of a $1 trillion coin. People keep calling it a gimmick. It's in the Constitution. It's not a gimmick. It's just something that they haven't used because before this point, there wasn't this partisan fighting where they were, and they were always able to, pass the bills because there was, war funding or military funding and this and that, and they weren't using it for these culture war issues. I will admit, you have to look at what the Republicans are doing. They're taking advantage of the fact that Biden is either complicit or inept. Either one you want to choose. It's not good. Okay. And they're taking advantage of that fact to institute a bill, to push the debt ceiling bill and saying, we can't go over this. We can't ever have more than this. Oh my God. While they're spending more on the military, they're not going after any of the corporations for, higher taxes, and the money doesn't have to be paid back. It's just a representation of what's already out there anyway. That's the biggest point. So it's all just crap, and Biden could have just ignored them. He didn't have to be held hostage. But here's the reality everybody has to realize. Biden has wanted all these cuts for decades. He's wanted them, and he's using this as an excuse to get them and say, hey, guys, I did the best I could. And for Ro Khanna to come out there and say that Biden has been fighting for them, and that, I don't care what that other guy said, because if he's a corporate Democrat, then he's going to say that anything that working people get is pandering to progressives. And the progressives, and I know, haven't gotten anything that they've been promised. We haven't even gotten a full $2,000 check. People are not going to let that $600 go. Biden is not going to win. Democrats better get that through their thick head. It is going to be people saying, I will vote for whoever the Republican is, not me. I'm not going to do this. I didn't vote for the Democrat or Republican last time. I'm not going to do it for this time. But there are people, and you know them, that have openly said, if it's between Trump and Biden, I'm voting for Trump. That's how bad Biden has performed. He's broken literally every single promise he made to working people. He fought against a union. He union busted. I mean, how horrible of a president can you be? And then he comes out with bill after bill. The Inflation Reduction Act was a joke. I mean, give me a break. It's just every single bill coming out. And then he capitulates to these, I tweeted about it today, these ultra MAGA, extreme MAGA Republicans who are a threat to democracy. We compromised with them. So what does that make him? He didn't even try to do anything to stand up against him and say, no, I'm going to fight for working people.
Yeah,
so
I just want to point out some of the things that the debt ceiling passed was limits on non-defense spending. So they could have limited defense spending, but they specifically both Democrats and Republicans, and more Democrats in the House voted for this than the Republicans, by the way. And they suspended the debt limit. They rescinded unspent from COVID. They cut $1.4 billion in IRS funding. Now that was funding that's supposed to go to the IRS so that they can have enough money and resources to go after tax cheats of the wealthy, of the rich. And that they said that I believe is like $1 to $7. $1 going to the IRS would bring back $7. I believe that was the number. But basically, they will be able to bring in more revenue because they're giving the IRS more money and etc. The last thing I want to point out is the speeds up energy projects. So that's something that Joe Manchin wanted. And I remember back when Joe Manchin was asking for this, and in the House, the progressives in the House and the Republicans in the Senate, they were able to block that from passing in a last must-pass bill. But I guess Biden was like, hey, don't worry about it this time, Joe Manchin. I'll get you next time. And this is him getting that payback. So let me go to Day.
Well, go look at the last one. Oh, the loan payments, dude. That's like the most important one. He was supposed to cancel money and he didn't. And then now they got to pay retroactively all the interest that accrued while they weren't paying. That's how dirty and underhanded the GOP is, and how complicit Biden was to allow them to put into the bill that now you have to pay the money that accrued over the time that they suspended payments. And they didn't even cancel the $10,000. So it's worse off now than it was in his campaign promises. I'm telling you, man.
The election is not on their side.
All right, I'm going to play this last clip as we start to wrap up the show.
But it did turn out that in the end, and I had problems with the left, but they came aboard. And they said, we're going to work with the middle. And the Democratic Party, which is always accused of being, divided, Democrats divided as usual or something, usual canard, they worked together.
Hakeem Jeffries played
and the star, another exactly.
Came.
And he was the one that Nancy Pelosi wanted. I'm sure Clyburn goes along with him. He was the leader of the blacks. He's a young guy.
He was the leader of the blacks. The
With an S?
Yo, this is Chris Matthews. Yo, no wonder he's going from the show.
I thought he was
going back. I'm gonna play it again.
He was the leader of the blacks. He's a young guy. He was a very attractive, an alternative to AOC. But you notice the squad really didn't cause a lot of trouble this time. The left, if you will, the progressive, 101 members of that caucus. I just noticed that they got only 46 against the bill. So in other words, most of the progressives went with Biden, which is very interesting.
Let me tell you something. It goes counter to the caricature, Chris and Rev and everybody else, the caricature of the progressive caucus and the Democratic Party. They're supposed to be Marxist, extremists, this, that, the other. You look at, and it's, as you know very well, it's not always been this way with the progressive caucus. You look at the extreme discipline. You want to talk about extreme. They have disciplined themselves. They've stood shoulder to shoulder with a moderate president they don't agree with on a lot of things. They have been there for the big votes when Nancy Pelosi needed them for the big votes. They were there last night. Some of them I completely respect them, say we can't vote for this, but we're there. We had Roe on yesterday who said, I'm not going to vote for it, but I understand Joe Biden did the best that anybody could have possibly done.
Oh my gosh. We got a little bit of a no-cow zone. Matter of fact, let me go to Dave first, and then we're going to go to this last no-cow zone impromptu from PJ Chris to Johnny, and then we're going to wrap up the show.
These people are professional idiots. Like I've come to the conclusion that I think every night, like you ever see those movies when you put the helmet on, you have dream scenes and you see the world. I believe every night all of them go in and they do that and get programmed with a reality that does not exist to anybody but them. I don't understand how it's so difficult. And I know they're not good faith actors, but every time they say something like the left, the liberals, or moderate, no one ever asks these people, what does that mean? Define that. Because now they're talking about Marxism. And I'm like, baby, it's not even Marxism to ask for the basic stuff that every other country has. And so it's like, you watch this and it's like, you watch how you can program people. Just like people talk about, oh, Fox News is doing all these horrible things. Clips like that remind me why I don't watch that, and remind me why so many Democrats live in this perpetual state of fear and misinformation, which is ironic given all the stuff that they're talking about with censorship. Hate it here, 1-star review.
I almost call that clip the mainstream media pat progressives on the head.
It was
basically them giving them praise, which apparently it seems like that's what AOC and others, that's all they care about, because when you see how non-confrontational they are when they go on mainstream media, like that's the time that you have to put the pressure. At least that's what the initial hope for the Justice Democrats was. Someone that's going to go in there and fight. The same way we will see independent media, certain leaders in independent media fight and go after the Democrats. We were hoping that we could elect those same ideology, those same kind of people, put them in Congress and have them put the pressure that we only see coming from the Freedom Caucus. It is absolutely crazy. So before we end, though, let me bring up this from PJ Chris, and this is to Johnny. I disagree with Johnny right now. January 6th has changed everything, and I am in the camp of we need to hold off Republicans and support Democrats 100% for the next few years until MAGA is gone. That reminds me of a clip. I'm gonna bring up the clip.
Well, I've got
Johnny
news
talks.
for you.
Go
Guess
ahead,
what? The reason we have MAGA is because Democrats are laissez-faire neoliberals who can't perform and have fought for the same corporate interests since Bill Clinton. So by putting them in charge and getting the same status quo, little bitty nibbles at the edge and feeding corporations, you're going to enhance MAGA. Because one thing I tell people, and it pisses me out that you say this because people don't realize neoliberalism is the fertile ground upon which fascism grows. Okay? Fascism erupts and grows out of the fertile ground of neoliberalism, the do-nothingness of neoliberalism. So we need radical. I mean, when I say radical, I'm talking about the necessities. People talk about, Merriam-Williamson is talking about the Economic Bill of Rights, which I support. I ran on that in 2018. And it's a good platform. People need jobs. They need, have a right to recreation. And recreation is included in there.
Beautiful, yeah.
To live a decent life, you have a right to recreation. You work hard, you raise your family. You guys should go out on a vacation and enjoy the wonderful land around us, right? That's like in there. But there were some things. I was talking to a friend on Twitter, and I said, some things are not just rights; they are human necessities. That, I think, takes precedence over rights. And if they're a necessity like food, water, shelter, housing, which I include clothing as shelter, by the way, things that we consider necessities first and foremost, and we can later decide what else are necessities. Are cell phones necessities in life so that you can always be connected? We can decide that
education.
Later, certainly necessities of life should not be privatized. They should not be something that are sold out on the open market. They should be something that we take, a communal look at. And I think it's just much more important when we look at things. I think education is a necessity of any successful society, because you can't have doctors, engineers, people that you're going to rely on, even other teachers, if you don't educate those people, right? So your healthcare can't be the first thing. It has to be after education. You have to put that you see what I'm saying? Like, people want to put money into military. You don't need the money in the military to go around 800, different military bases. You can have a defensive military that's justifiable. Make sure people aren't attacking you. I mean, imagine what we could do with the resources, not the money. The money is incidental. The resources that we spend and we expend, the labor and the factories and everything that we put into building bombs and tanks and all this crap that could go into schools and bridges and everything else. So, yeah. It's
I hear you. Much love to DJ Chris. I like having different voices on here. That's why we have that No Calzone segment, so that people with difference of opinion can express those. And on the way out, I want to show this video.
You don't believe in voting, so how?
And by the way, I don't agree with Dr. Umar Johnson on a lot of different things. I believe you love who you love. He talks about snow bunnies and stuff like that. But here's one thing that I do agree with.
You don't believe in voting, so how?
No, I believe in voting when I have something to vote for.
Okay.
The issue with electoral politics and black people, whether it's America, Africa, or the Caribbean, is we often have nothing to vote for. And the reason we often have nothing to vote for is this party and its so-called antagonists, this party, are both financed by that Chinese man. They're both financed by that white man.
Yeah.
They're both financed by that East Indian. So they got everybody running around Jamaica, who you going to vote for? Running around the United States of America, who you going to vote for? Running around South Africa, who you going to vote for? When at the end of the day, no matter who wins, he wins because he financed both campaigns. I'm not against voting, but I will only vote when you give me a reason.
Okay.
Let's take voting in America. Black people in America never get anything when they vote. So how do they motivate us to vote if we never get nothing when we do? Fear. Black people are the only constituency in this country who vote out of fear. In other words, I'm not voting to stop police brutality because they're not going to stop it. I'm not voting to change mass incarceration. They're not going to change it. I'm not voting to fix the schools. They're never going to fix them. So what you voting for? Because I'm afraid of what Trump might do. You see that? That's how we vote, fear. Now, when the Jews go to the polls, when the Latinos go to the polls, when the Arabs, the East Indians, the Anglo-Saxons go to the polls, they're going for concessions. I'm getting something out of this vote. I'm getting something that we already agreed upon before election day. Black people are getting nothing. We vote out of fear. Our motivation is fear. Joe Biden may do nothing for you, but Donald Trump will be worse. See how that works? This is how they get us out. The black man is the only one in the voting line voting because he's scared of what the other man might do to him.
The other people, they already got something coming to them already.
Absolutely.
All right. Drop them. Oh,
I gotta
my bad.
agree
I
with
kicked
Dr.
out
Umar.
It's all right. On one thing to agree with him, he dropped the mic on that one, and somebody better give Ice Cube his flowers because he tried. He tried in 2020, and they just, people, Amanda Seals and all these people came out like, no, just gotta vote for Biden, and he tried. I wonder where he is now. I hope somebody's giving him his flowers. Much love to everybody in chat. I don't know if anybody has any last words. Oh, go ahead, Dave. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, the step that I think a lot of people are missing, because I'd agreed with what he said, is that we need to start viewing primaries the way we view the general election. Because once you get to the general, the decision is made. You don't have anything to vote for. Primaries are where you get a chance to put your values on the ballot instead of feeling like you're doing something negative. And if we could make that shift as a black community, as a country, I believe people would be so much better.
100%. Let me give a shout out to the Patreon members: Nancy Venture, Pedro Hernandez, Deborah B, PJ Chris. Thank you so much for the No Cow Zone today. Akibash Akita, Zachary Agustin, Day, and David. Much love to y'all. You're not on the sign, but thank you guys for the support. And let me give a shout out to some people in the chat: PJ Chris, Holly Horn, Norman Kenya. I know Paul Patrick, Cheryl Patrick, let me see, Natalie Williams, Norman, Miguel H, Holly Horn. Much love to everybody. QB Socialista. Let me go around the horn for the last words. Let me go to you first, Dave.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys watching. Check us out on Call Me Limbo Pod. You can find us everywhere where you listen to podcasts. And more importantly, do your best to be engaged as much as you can. And if you do that, I think a little bit every day helps.
Yeah, much love. Johnny.
Yeah, man, it was nice coming back. And yeah, I mean, I kind of, I ditto that is don't get wrapped up in what the mainstream says. Pay attention. Case pushed this stuff out there so that we can see what the narrative is that they want you to believe. Doesn't mean you're supposed to believe it. It means you're supposed to question it and then go find the right information and then work toward correcting what they're trying to do to us, man. Because I agree. I'm sick of this place. 1 star. That was
1 star. David.
Yeah, when I started getting kind of overwhelmed or down about thinking about influencing the federal system, I just started thinking about my own sphere of influence, which is why I started getting more involved in local politics. And so that's what made me feel like I was making a change. And so I guess that's what I would encourage people to think about, is just their own sphere of influence and where they can maybe make change too. So you can listen to Day and I talk about political issues, pop culture on Call Me Limbo. And Case, thank you for having me back. It's good to see everybody.
And thank you.
Please check out my guys, David and Day, Call Me Limbo. You can find it Apple Podcasts and anywhere you can find podcasts. It is hilarious. They have some a hilarious podcast and some good conversations over there. And I'm excited to also announce that January 13th, I'm going to be on Savvy Sab's show. I'm giving you guys the exclusive. I already arranged it with her that we're going to be doing our test launch for the Mutual Aid Party website. So it's not going to be public yet, but when we do the show, I'm going to give out a secret URL website that I've been testing, and people are going to be able to sign up. People are going to be able to create tickets, mutual aid tickets, be able to answer tickets, and it's all testing. So don't actually go to somebody's house and help them with their couch or something. It will be a testing process, but that means that we're really close to the full launch. So I'm really excited. It's going to be June 13th, 7 p.m. You're going to see more as you follow Savvy Sabs and you follow me on Twitter. You're going to see more as we get closer to that time. So, all right, let's get out of here. I didn't get a chance to play any music, but We're going to get out of here. What I said, January? I said January, guys?
The first time, but you corrected it the second time.
Oh, okay, I corrected myself. Yeah, I mean June.
Well, you said, wait. You said January 23rd, and then you said June 13th. So
what's going on with me? It's time for me to go to sleep. It's time for me. It's Sunday. Time for bed. So this is the date. It's June 13th.
Okay.
7 p.m.
All right.
All right. And I'm trying to look for the music. Well, we don't have to play the music. It's all right. Yeah, whatever. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for coming and listening with us. We're going to see you back. We're going to be back in 2 weeks. We're going to be back here again Sunday in 2 weeks. Much love to everybody. Could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Peace.